The invitation that changed everything. Keanu Reeves had always been a private person. Despite his fame, he remained humble, preferring simple moments over extravagant displays. He was known for his generosity, kindness, and respect for different cultures. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. One evening, while taking a quiet stroll through a park in Los Angeles, he met an elderly man sitting on a bench. The man had a long white beard and a serene look in his eyes. Keanu was drawn to his presence and sat beside him, not knowing that this simple interaction would set off a chain of events leading to a life-changing journey. "You look like a man searching for peace," the elderly man said with a warm smile. Keanu chuckled. "Maybe. I think we all are in some way." The man nodded. "True. Have you ever experienced Ramadan?" Keanu thought for a moment. He had heard of it, but never truly understood its depth. "I know it's an important time for Muslims, a month of fasting and reflection." The elderly man, whose name was Ahmed, nodded. "It's more than just abstaining from food and drink. It's about self-discipline, patience, gratitude, and above all, unity. People come together, share meals, and open their hearts to one another." Something about Ahmed's words struck Keanu deeply. He had spent years searching for deeper meaning in life, through books, travel, and even meditation. But this was something different. "Would you be open to experiencing it firsthand?" Ahmed asked. Keanu hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "I would love to." And just like that, an unexpected invitation led him on a journey he never anticipated. A flight to the Middle East. A week later, Keanu found himself on a flight to Dubai. He had been invited by a local family, friends of Ahmed, to experience Ramadan in an authentic way. Though he had traveled the world, this felt different. There was a sense of purpose in this trip, a calling he couldn't quite explain. As the plane descended, the breathtaking skyline of Dubai came into view. It was a city of contrasts. Modern skyscrapers standing beside historic mosques, the desert meeting the sea. Upon landing, he was greeted by Omar, a young man with a wide smile and warm eyes. "Welcome, Mr. Reeves. Or should I say, welcome, Brother Keanu." Keanu laughed, already feeling at ease. Keanu was just fine. They drove through the city, past souks bustling with life, streets lined with golden lights, and families preparing for iftar, the meal that breaks the fast. As they reached their destination, a modest yet beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood, Keanu felt a warmth unlike anything he had experienced before. Breaking the fast. A moment of unity. Inside, he was welcomed like family. Omar's parents, siblings, and even neighbors had gathered for iftar. Despite being a global superstar, Keanu felt no different from anyone else in the room. As the call to prayer echoed through the evening air, a peaceful hush fell over the room. Plates of dates, bowls of lentil soup, and glasses of water were placed in front of everyone. Omar's father, a wise and gentle man, explained the tradition. "We break our fast with dates and water, as was the practice of the Prophet. It's a reminder of gratitude, how even the simplest of things are blessings." Keanu took a bite of a date, its sweetness filling his senses. The simplicity of the moment struck him. This was about more than just food. It was about appreciation, humility, and the beauty of shared experiences. As the night went on, they ate together, shared stories, and laughed like old friends. Keanu was deeply moved by their hospitality, by the way they treated him not as a celebrity, but as a human being. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something he hadn't expected. Peace, a new perspective. As the days passed, Keanu fully immersed himself in Ramadan. He joined in the fast, waking up before dawn for suhoor, the pre-dawn meal, and experiencing the patience required to go without food or water until sunset. He visited mosques, listened to Quranic recitations, and witnessed the beauty of people coming together in prayer. He saw how Ramadan wasn't just about self-restraint, but about generosity, how people went out of their way to feed the hungry, support the poor, and uplift one another. One night, as he sat with Omar's family under a starlit sky, he reflected on everything he had experienced. "This has changed me," he admitted. "Not just the fasting, but the kindness, the togetherness, the peace that comes from focusing on something greater than yourself." Omar's father nodded. "That is the true essence of Ramadan. It's not about deprivation, but about purification of the heart, the soul, and the mind." Keanu had always believed in the power of human connection, but this was something deeper. It wasn't just about culture or religion. It was about unity, about recognizing that despite our differences, at our core, we are all the same, seeking peace, love, and understanding. And as he looked around at the smiling faces of the people who had welcomed him so openly, he knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning of a journey he would never forget. A night of destiny and an unexpected act of kindness. The days of Ramadan passed in a blur of reflection, fasting, and newfound understanding. Each evening, Keanu Reeves sat with Omar's family, breaking his fast with them, listening to their stories, and absorbing the essence of a month that had always felt distant, but now seemed profoundly close to his heart. But as the final 10 nights approached, he began hearing whispers of something extraordinary. Laylat al-Qadr, the night of destiny. Omar's father explained its significance one evening as they gathered under the open sky after iftar. "It is the most sacred night of Ramadan, Keanu. A night that is better than 1,000 months. Prayers made on this night are said to be accepted, and hearts are open to the mercy of the divine." The reverence in his voice sent a shiver through Keanu. He had seen devotion before, but there was something different about this, something deeply personal and powerful. That night, the family invited him to the mosque for a special prayer, Tarawih, held only during Ramadan. As Keanu stepped into the mosque, the atmosphere overwhelmed him. The air was thick with the soft hum of recitations, people standing shoulder to shoulder, their heads bowed in silent devotion. He found a place near the back, watching, observing, feeling. Even though he wasn't Muslim, no one treated him as an outsider. He was simply the soul seeking understanding. And that was enough. For hours, he listened, closing his eyes as the rhythmic recitation of the Quran washed over him. He didn't understand the words, but he felt them. They carried a weight, an energy that reached beyond language. As the prayers continued, he found himself thinking about his own journey, his struggles, the losses he had endured, the moments of loneliness that had haunted him despite his success. He realized that for the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about others, about their pain, their joys, their resilience. When they left the mosque in the early hours of the morning, Keanu felt something shift within him. He couldn't name it, but he knew he was different, lighter somehow. As they walked back home in the cool, silent streets, Omar nudged him. "Did you feel it?" Keanu turned to him, curious. "Feel what?" Omar grinned. "The peace." That night, Keanu barely slept. He stayed up, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything he had experienced. He thought about how much the world focused on differences when, at its core, humanity was bound by the same desires. For peace, for kindness, for love. He had come here expecting to witness Ramadan from the outside, but instead, he was living it, breathing it. The next day, something happened that would cement this experience in his heart forever. While walking through the marketplace with Omar, he noticed a young boy sitting alone on the sidewalk, his clothes tattered, his eyes weary. Something about the child struck Keanu deeply. Maybe it was the way he clutched an old, torn book, or maybe it was the quiet way he watched people pass by, never asking for anything. Keanu crouched beside him. "Hey there, what's your name?" The boy hesitated before murmuring, "Yusuf." Keanu smiled. "That's a beautiful name. What's your book about?" The boy's face lit up. "It's a story about a traveler who finds his way home." Something in those words pierced Keanu's heart. "And do you have a home, Yusuf?" The boy looked down, his fingers tightening around the book. Not really. Without thinking, Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick wad of bills. But before he could hand them over, a gentle hand stopped him. It was an old woman who had been selling fruit nearby. She shook her head. "Money is not what he needs, my son. He needs a chance." Keanu felt a lump in his throat. This was the lesson of Ramadan. Not just giving, but giving in a way that changes lives. That evening, he spoke to Omar's father, who had connections with a local orphanage. Together, they arranged for Yusuf to have a safe place to stay, an education, a future. When Keanu told the boy, Yusuf didn't say anything at first. He just hugged him, gripping him tightly as though afraid to let go. As Keanu walked back that night, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not just peace, but purpose. Laylat al-Qadr wasn't just about seeking blessings. It was about becoming a blessing to others. And in that moment, he knew this journey wasn't over yet. The final days of Ramadan and the gift of farewell. The days of Ramadan were winding down, and with them came an unspoken feeling of bittersweet anticipation. The city of Dubai seemed to hum with an energy that Keanu Reeves could feel in his bones. As the holy month neared its end, the streets were adorned with lanterns, mosques filled with worshippers seeking the last moments of divine mercy, and markets overflowed with families preparing for the grand celebration of Eid al-Fitr. For Keanu, these final days were unlike anything he had ever experienced. The people around him were exhausted from the long fasts, yet their spirits remained unwavering. They weren't just waiting for the end of Ramadan. They were savoring it, grasping onto its final moments as if reluctant to let go. One evening, as he sat with Omar's family breaking their fast, he noticed how each person seemed to give a little extra, whether it was food, a kind word, or even a simple smile. The realization hit him. Ramadan wasn't just about sacrifice, but about transformation. It had a way of refining the soul, of making people softer, more open, more giving. That night, Omar's father invited him for one last act of charity before the month ended. Zakat al-Fitr, he explained, was a special form of charity given before the Eid prayer, an offering to ensure that even the poorest in society could celebrate the festival with dignity. Keanu had given to charity before, but this was different. This wasn't just writing a check or donating to an organization. This was personal. Walking through the quieter streets of the city, they handed out bags of food to those who needed them most. Keanu saw firsthand the look of relief on a mother's face as she received enough provisions to feed her children for the holiday. He saw the gratitude in the eyes of an elderly man who had no family but now had a meal to share with his neighbors. These were small acts, but their impact was immeasurable. Later that night, Keanu sat alone on the rooftop of Omar's home, staring out at the vast cityscape. He had come here as a visitor, but he felt like he had become part of something much greater. The lessons of Ramadan, the patience, the gratitude, the unity, had seeped into his soul in ways he hadn't expected. Then came the morning of Eid al-Fitr. The city was alive with joy, people dressed in their finest clothes, embracing one another with warm greetings of Eid Mubarak. Omar's family had insisted that Keanu join them for the special prayer at the mosque, and though he wasn't Muslim, he accepted the invitation. Standing among thousands of people, all bowing in unison, all whispering prayers of gratitude, Keanu felt something shift within him. This wasn't about religion alone. This was about connection, about a shared moment of love, peace, and hope that transcended borders, beliefs, and backgrounds. After the prayer, the real celebration began. Homes were filled with laughter, tables overflowed with delicious food, and the city pulsed with an infectious joy. Omar's younger siblings tugged at Keanu's hand, leading him toward the dining area where platters of sweets and steaming cups of tea awaited. The warmth of their laughter, the effortless way he was embraced as family, made him realize something. For the first time in years, he wasn't just watching a moment, he was living it. And then came the hardest part, saying goodbye. On his last evening in Dubai, Keanu visited the orphanage where Yusuf now lived. The young boy, once reserved and quiet, now ran toward him with open arms, clutching his book tightly in one hand. "You're leaving?" he asked, his voice laced with sadness. Keanu knelt beside him. "I have to, buddy. But this isn't the end." Yusuf hesitated before pulling something from his pocket, a tiny hand-drawn picture of a man standing under a crescent moon. "It's you," he explained shyly, "the traveler who found his way home." Keanu swallowed hard, touched beyond words. He had come to Dubai expecting to learn about Ramadan, but instead he had found something even greater, a reminder of the boundless kindness that existed in the world and a renewed purpose to be part of it. As his plane took off later that night, he looked out over the shimmering lights below and made a silent promise. He wouldn't let this experience fade into just another memory. He would carry it forward, letting the lessons of Ramadan shape him in ways he never expected. Because in the end, Ramadan wasn't just about fasting. It was about rediscovering what it means to be human. The weight of a new understanding. The plane touched down in Los Angeles just before dawn. The city was still asleep, its streets nearly empty, the glow of neon signs flickering against the early morning mist. Keanu Reeves stepped out of the airport, inhaling the cool air, but something felt different. It wasn't the city that had changed, it was him. The past month had reshaped something deep within him, leaving behind a quiet but persistent echo. He had always been a seeker of meaning, finding pieces of it in books, in films, in long motorcycle rides along endless highways. But Ramadan had given him something more profound, a tangible experience of selflessness, patience, and human connection. Now, standing in the familiar chaos of Leh, he felt the weight of that understanding pressing against him. His phone buzzed with messages, requests from film studios, invitations to events, 100 voices pulling him back into the life he had momentarily stepped away from. He should have felt relieved to return to normalcy, but instead, he felt like a stranger in his own world. The extravagance, the rush, the relentless pursuit of fame and success, it all seemed so distant from the quiet humility he had just left behind. That morning, he walked into his home, a sleek yet minimalistic space that had always provided him with a sense of solitude. But today, the silence felt different. He set down his bag, glanced at the bookshelf filled with philosophy and poetry, and found his eyes drawn to something else, a small hand-drawn picture tucked into the side of the shelf. Yusuf's drawing, the traveler under the crescent moon. Keanu sank into the couch, rubbing his temples. What now? He had experienced something life-altering, but how did he carry it forward? How did he bring the lessons of Ramadan into a world that often seemed to move too fast for reflection, too self-absorbed for genuine connection? The burden of knowing. Over the next few days, he tried slipping back into routine. Morning coffee at his favorite cafe, quiet afternoons spent reading scripts, late night. The next morning, he made a decision. He pulled out his phone and made a call to a community center he had once visited, a place that worked with the homeless in LA. He had donated to them in the past, but today he didn't want to write a check. He wanted to be present. Arriving at the shelter, he was greeted with a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Mr. Reeves," the coordinator said, "we weren't expecting you." "Just Keanu," he corrected with a smile. "And I'm here to help." He spent the day serving meals, sitting with people whose stories were often ignored by the world. He listened as they spoke about lost jobs, broken families, and dreams that had slipped through their fingers. And in their words, he found echoes of what he had seen during Ramadan: resilience, hope, and the quiet strength of those who refused to be defined by their hardships. Later, as he helped clean up, an elderly man with weathered hands and tired eyes approached him. "You don't belong here," he said, studying Keanu's face. Keanu smiled. "Maybe this is exactly where I belong." The man chuckled. "Most people like you, they come, they go. They do a good thing once, then disappear back into their world. But you look like someone searching for something. Keanu thought of the question that had been haunting him since he left Dubai. How do you carry an experience like Ramadan into the rest of your life? He didn't have an answer yet, but maybe, just maybe, this was how it started. The call that changed everything. That night, as he sat in his quiet home, staring once more at Yusuf's drawing, his phone rang. It was Omar. "Brother Keanu." Omar's voice was full of warmth. "How is it? Have they changed you back into a movie star yet?" Keanu laughed. "I don't think I'll ever be the same." "I knew it," Omar said. "Ramadan does that to people. So when are you coming back?" The question caught Keanu off guard. "Back. To visit," Omar said. "To see Yusuf. He asks about you all the time. And my family. They still talk about you as if you're one of us." Keanu looked out at the city skyline, the lights stretching endlessly into the night. For the first time in weeks, he felt something settle inside him. "I think," he said slowly, "that this journey isn't over yet." Omar laughed. "It never is, my friend. Ramadan may be over, but its lessons, they stay with you forever." Keanu hung up the phone, a quiet smile on his lips. He didn't have all the answers, but he had a direction, and sometimes that was enough. Because true change isn't just about what you learn, it's about what you do with it. And Keanu Reeves wasn't done yet. A life-changing decision. Los Angeles was alive with its usual rhythm, the hum of traffic, the neon glow of billboards, and the ceaseless motion of people chasing their dreams. Yet for Keanu Reeves, everything had slowed down. The world around him seemed louder than before, yet emptier. The conversations he once engaged in now felt superficial. The luxuries he once enjoyed now seemed excessive. Something inside him had shifted, and he knew it wasn't temporary. His mind often drifted back to Dubai, to the quiet nights of Ramadan, the deep conversations, the shared meals that carried more meaning than any grand banquet he had ever attended. He thought about Yusuf, the boy with the torn book and eyes full of unspoken pain, and about Omar's family, who had embraced him like their own. Their kindness wasn't just an act of generosity, it was a way of life, a perspective that had redefined the way he saw the world. One evening, as he sat alone on his balcony, overlooking the glittering city skyline, he knew he had to make a decision. He couldn't keep pretending that this was just another chapter in his life, something he could close and move on from. Ramadan had changed him, and now he had to change something in return. The search for purpose. The next morning, Keanu cleared his schedule. He canceled unnecessary meetings, turned down film offers that felt soulless, and distanced himself from the parts of Hollywood that no longer resonated with him. Instead, he began researching, looking into humanitarian efforts, charities, and organizations that focused on real, meaningful change. Days turned into weeks as he quietly visited shelters, hospitals, and refugee centers. He spoke to people who had been displaced by war, mothers who had lost everything but still held on to hope, children who had never known the safety of a real home. Everywhere he went, he saw resilience, a quality he had witnessed in its purest form during Ramadan. One evening, after a long day at a refugee center, he sat down with a young volunteer named Aisha, who had dedicated her life to humanitarian work. As they sipped tea in the dimly lit common room, she asked him a question that struck him deeply. "Why are you doing this, Keanu?" she asked, her eyes studying him. "You could be anywhere in the world, living in luxury, yet you're here, in the middle of this reality most people try to avoid." Keanu thought for a long moment before answering. "Because I've seen what kindness can do. I've seen how small acts, sharing a meal, offering a hand, sitting down, and really listening, can change a person's entire world. I don't want to just be a spectator anymore." Aisha nodded thoughtfully. "Then don't be. But understand, real change takes commitment. It's not just about showing up. It's about staying, about building something that lasts." That night, Keanu lay awake, Aisha's words echoing in his mind. He had spent years searching for purpose, and now it felt like purpose had finally found him. But what could he do that would truly last? The answer in the past. The next morning, Keanu opened his suitcase and pulled out the one thing he had carried with him from Dubai. Yusuf's drawing. The Traveler Under the Crescent Moon. That was it. The Traveler. Keanu had always been a traveler, moving from city to city, set to set, never staying in one place for too long. But what if he could use that to make a difference? What if he could create something bigger than himself, something that connected people across cultures, across borders, across beliefs? The idea hit him like a spark. He grabbed his phone and called Omar. "Omar, my friend," Keanu said, his voice filled with excitement. "I need your help. The project that would change everything." Over the next several months, Keanu worked relentlessly. He met with humanitarian organizations, architects, educators, and community leaders, shaping a vision that had started as a simple thought on a balcony in Los Angeles. His plan: a global initiative to build community centers that would provide education, food, and shelter for orphans and refugees. But not just any centers. These would be places of unity, spaces where people from all backgrounds could come together, share stories, and learn from one another. Places where kindness wasn't just a gesture, but a foundation. And he knew exactly what to call it: the Traveler Initiative. Inspired by Yusuf's drawing, the initiative's mission would be simple: to bring hope and opportunity to those who had been forgotten by the world. Keanu poured his own money into the project, refusing to make it just another celebrity-backed charity. He didn't want this to be about his name. He wanted it to be about the people it would serve. As the first center began construction in a small village outside of Dubai, Keanu flew back, stepping onto the land where his journey had truly begun. When he arrived, he found Omar and his family waiting for him, along with a very special guest, Yusuf. The boy's eyes widened as he looked up at the large sign that bore the name, the Traveler Initiative. He turned to Keanu, his small hands clutching his old book. "You really built this." Keanu knelt beside him. "We built this, Yusuf. You inspired it." Yusuf blinked up at him, then did something that nearly broke Keanu's heart. He handed him the old book, the one he had never let go of. "Then I want you to have this," Yusuf said softly, "so you can keep traveling." Keanu took the book, his hands trembling. He had given the boy a home, but in return, Yusuf had given him something far greater: a reason to keep going. As he stood, looking at the first of what would be many traveler centers, he realized something profound. Ramadan had changed him. But now it wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the journey of every person he could help, every life he could touch. And in that moment, Keanu Reeves knew this was the real beginning. A legacy of hope and the journey ahead. The first Traveler Center opened its doors to a crowd that stretched far beyond what Keanu Reeves had imagined. Children ran excitedly through the courtyard, their laughter filling the air, while parents stood in quiet awe, reading the words etched onto the entrance: a place for the wanderers, the seekers, and the dreamers. A place where hope begins again. Keanu stood at the edge of it all, taking in the sight. This wasn't a movie set. There were no cameras, no scripted moments. This was real, and it was only the beginning. For months, he had poured everything into this initiative. He had met with architects to design sustainable buildings, educators to create programs, and local leaders to ensure that these centers weren't just structures, but true sanctuaries of change. More locations were already being planned, in refugee camps, in war-torn cities, in places where hope had been reduced to a distant memory. But with each step forward came a new challenge: the struggles of change. The Traveler Initiative quickly gained attention. Some hailed it as a groundbreaking humanitarian effort, while others questioned its longevity. Could a Hollywood actor really sustain a global movement like this? Was it just another fleeting celebrity passion project? Investors hesitated. Bureaucracies slowed progress. Governments put up barriers, demanding endless paperwork and permissions. And with fame came the scrutiny. Journalists dug into every aspect of Keanu's life, trying to find a reason why he, of all people, had chosen this path. One night, as he sat with Omar in the courtyard of the Dubai Center, exhaustion etched into his features, he exhaled deeply. "What if this isn't enough?" he admitted. "What if I can't keep this going?" Omar handed him a cup of tea, a knowing smile on his face. "You sound like a man trying to carry the whole world on his shoulders." Keanu chuckled tiredly. "It feels like that sometimes." Omar leaned forward. "Keanu, do you remember the first night you joined us for iftar? You didn't understand Ramadan fully then, but you still felt it. You lived it. And it changed you. This initiative, it's the same. You don't have to fix everything overnight. Just keep going. One step at a time." Keanu took a deep breath. One step at a time. That was how Ramadan had been. That was how life had to be. A voice for the forgotten. With renewed determination, he expanded his efforts, calling on people from all walks of life. Actors, artists, entrepreneurs, activists, to contribute in any way they could. Not just with money, but with time, skills, and stories. He traveled from country to country, visiting displaced families, speaking at global summits, and using his platform to shift attention from red carpets to the real struggles people face daily. He shared stories of children like Yusuf, of mothers who had lost everything but still sang lullabies at night, of communities that had been forgotten but refused to disappear. At one event, a journalist asked him, "What's your end goal? How do you measure success in something like this?" Keanu paused before answering. "I don't think kindness has an endpoint. We don't measure it in numbers. We measure it in moments. The moment a child picks up a book instead of a weapon. The moment a family finds shelter instead of a street corner. The moment someone believes they're not alone anymore. That's what this is about." And people listened, not because he was famous, but because he spoke not as a savior, but as a traveler, a man who had once been lost himself and had found purpose in the most unexpected of places. A journey that never ends. Years passed, and the Traveler Initiative grew beyond what Keanu had ever imagined. Centers were built in over 20 countries, providing education, housing, and mentorship. People from all faiths, all backgrounds, all walks of life came together to support it, not as a charity, but as a shared mission. One day, he found himself back in Dubai, walking through the first center he had helped create. The walls were covered with artwork made by the children. The library was filled with books, and laughter echoed in every corridor. And then there he was, Yusuf, now a young man, standing tall, holding a notebook in his hands. Keanu smiled. "You've grown." Yusuf grinned. "And you've kept your promise." They sat beneath the same tree where they had once spoken years ago, when Yusuf was just a lost child with a torn book. But this time, it was different. Yusuf placed the notebook in Keanu's hands. "I wrote something for you," he said. Keanu opened it, his heart tightening as he read the first line. A traveler once came to a land he did not know, searching for meaning. But in the kindness of strangers, he found a home. Keanu closed his eyes, the weight of the words sinking deep. He had spent a lifetime moving, searching, wondering if he truly belonged anywhere. But in this journey, he had found something greater than a destination. He had found a purpose that would outlive him. And as the evening call to prayer echoed across the city, Keanu looked up at the sky, the crescent moon shining brightly above. He smiled. Because this was only the beginning.